Oh, look at this. Fancy graphics. We're live.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Are we saying hello to each other?
Is there anybody out there?
Is anybody out there chat and say hello? We have a couple people already.
There might be people not commenting that are just sitting there watching. That's what they could be doing. So hello to whoever's out there. Okay.
Well, I think Carmine has joined us again. Thanks for joining us again, Carmine. You've joined us at the last webinar we had too, so it's great to have you here again this evening.
Oh,
and I
coming
think
in
if
now.
I can remember right, I think you were in New York, but please correct me if I'm wrong. We have Stuart Allison joining us. Let us know where you're calling in from. Brad again from NYC. Hi, Brad. I know you're a long-time user of HiveAlive, so it's great to hear from you again. We have, you're calling in from Prince George in Vermont. Lovely. It's great to have you here. Who else we got? Dwayne. Great to see you again too, Dwayne. Great to have you here. And Enrique. Let us know where you're calling in from, Enrique. Thanks so much for everyone to joining us. We're going to wait another few minutes, give people a chance to join in because it's not just yet 8 p.m. So yeah, as I said, let us know where you're calling in from. Give us a thumbs up that you can hear everything okay. I think people can though. And looking forward to getting into the content of tonight.
And you called it right. Carmine is from New York City. Well done, Linda.
Woo! We've Mark calling in from Southern Ohio.
Australia.
Was there someone from Australia? Cool. Yeah. Jeffrey from New Hampshire.
That's their morning. Yeah, it's morning Australia.
Oh, good morning to Australia. Hans, great to have you. We have Will calling in from Springdale. And I saw someone from Tennessee. Oh, yeah, the Northeast Tennessee Mountain City Beekeepers. That's a mouthful. Hi, Whitney. Great to have such a selection of people from across the States here and the world, indeed. Don't know if we've anyone calling in from Europe tonight. Last time we did have some people up late. Oh, someone from Brad's backyard, James Potts. Another Washington State as well. Paul, great to have you. Some neighbors, yeah. But it's just gone after the hour, so might start kicking it off so we can get into the good stuff.
Yeah, let's do that. Brad, do you want to take it away?
All right. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of a feedback. Are you getting feedback?
No. There's something I saw about feedback. Where did I see that?
Oh, Fred, did you try talking there? Fred could be muted.
Yeah.
Fred, are you muted?
No. Can you hear me?
No, he's not. No, Fred's talking. Fred's good. He's just very shy.
Well, okay. I'm just waiting for my turn.
Okay. Okay, Brad, you want to kick it off there then?
Okay. So, you know what? I had my, I think I had YouTube on, so that's where I was getting the feedback.
All right.
My apologies. I was hearing Linda talk over herself, but anyway, hey, everybody. My name is Brad Hole. I just want to welcome everybody here to the Beekeeping Talk and Q&A. Thanks for joining us. We'll wait another, well, I guess we've waited a couple minutes for people to get in here, but before we get started, if you haven't introduced yourself, please do. Let us know where you're joining from. You'll want to be commenting in the chat for a prize giveaway later, so we'll talk about that. My name is Brad Hole. I'm fairly new to the HiveAlive team. I've been here under a year. I reside in Seattle, Washington, the great Pacific Northwest. I've been keeping bees for 16, 17 years, and I'm a sales consultant, so I might have talked to you if you're a retailer. So anyway, let's kind of get this thing started. Anyway, so as I said, you want to comment in the feed over here. We're going to be doing a drawing by the end of the webinar, and we're going to choose 3 people to give away 3 bottles of 3 100 milliliter bottles of HiveAlive. So comment, and then we'll be in touch if you win. So you need to do that on either Facebook or YouTube. So let us know you're out there and let us know what you think. And most importantly, if you have any questions, please ask them in the comments. We'll be keeping an eye on there and do best to answer them by the end. So I want to introduce the 3 people on our panel up here, starting with Linda Connor, who is our operations manager at HiveAlive. She joined the team in the research department back in 2013. She is an undergrad in pharmacology and completed a research master's in honeybee gut health. In the middle, Dara is our founder of HiveAlive. He's been keeping bees for the last 25 years. He's had an exciting career in the medical industry and marine research, and then changed his career to focus on what he was most passionate about, which is honeybees. He collaborated with multiple universities, animal health, and seaweed experts to develop a supplement that would support honeybee health, and thus HiveAlive was born back in 2010. And what a roller coaster it's been ever since. And lastly, you'll recognize that handsome gentleman at the end. That's Fred Dunn, who we're honored to have on this evening. He's a honeybee educator focusing on backyard small-scale beekeeping. He shares the intricacies of bee biology and management primarily through his YouTube channel, Fred Dunn, and a podcast, The Way to Bee. He manages many beehive variations on his rural Pennsylvania property and has been obsessed with bees and their secrets since 2006. As a Cornell University master beekeeper, Fred uses scientific methods to improve management practices and evaluate tools and hive configurations across the spectrum. And he's a great guy too. Fred Dunn.
Wow, Brad, that was great all the way across. I'm really glad to, and the handsome part too doesn't beat that. So I want to thank you all for having me, and Dara for inviting me to be here, even though you know me and you knew what you were getting. I think that's fantastic. I'm looking at all the people over in the chat side. They probably want to know what they have to do to win. I heard someone say that or saw that comment there, so I guess they just exist in the comment section. So you asked me to come and you gave me 2.5 hours. I think that's great so that we can talk about wintering and preparing your bees to get through winter. And just so people know, if they're unfamiliar, I'm from the northeastern part of the United States. I'm in the northwestern part of the state of Pennsylvania. We are referred to as the snow belt. So when it comes to wintering, it's a fantastic area to find out if your honeybees are actually going to make it under challenging environmental conditions, because we basically have up to 6 months where we may not even get a decent cleansing flight out of your bees. So it's a great place for me, as mentioned before by Brad, that I evaluate honeybee equipment and so hive equipment. And of course, this is sponsored by HiveAlive. We have to say that feed and supplements also play an important role. And so if I'm supposed to talk about preparing your bees for winter, you better already be doing that. So I did make a list of topics I want to hit on. I don't have a PowerPoint. I do have some things to show you, but here's the deal. We start preparing for winter as soon as spring hits. I mean, that's basically it. We have to understand the bees that we're keeping. So I'll start with stock. A lot of brand new beekeepers, I know that a lot of people are seasoned that are watching here today and already know what they're going to work with. But there is such a thing as southern stock for beekeepers, and there's northern stock, and they all do very different things. And it can be overwhelming to try to figure out what is going to work where you live. So starting with the type of bee that's adapted locally to where you're keeping your bees. So if you're not in Pennsylvania, you're not in the snow belt, you may be looking for an entirely different line of survivability. And once you have that, and you've found out from people that you know what kind of bees they're keeping and what they do for you, right? The traits right down to their behavior, their brooding pattern and habits, their foraging ability, even the size of their tongues. These are all variables. But for me, I keep mutts. So I do support those who are keeping hive or survivor stock bees and those that are Varroa resistant and the hygienic VSH style bees. I support the people that are breeding those, but I also work within my own area, in my own apiary of about 43 colonies. And we cycle back our own stock just because we know that they're doing well where we live. So we've kicked that off. In the beginning, I started with southern bees. they ended up way too big brood-wise when the winter hit, which for us happens at the end of October, beginning of November. And last year, winter came early and strong. So the hive that you keep it in, that's aside from understanding your bees, the biology of your bees and their cycle through the year, and having locally adapted bees, the next thing is what you're going to put them in and how well that's going to work out, not just for your bees, but for you, the beekeeper. Because if it's not good facility-wise, you're not going to want to get in to tend to your bees. And some of the hives that I have on my property right now are no fun to get into. They're great for the bees. They're not great for me. So we need to know the health and status of our bees throughout the year. Right now, they're brooding up. This is August the 14th. We have goldenrod here where I live, and the nectar flow is on. You can walk out into the bee yard. If you're downwind, you smell it. So for right now, management means making sure that they're putting on enough honey and storing enough honey for themselves to get through winter. In the past, and this comes into hive configurations that I'm going to hit on in a minute, in the past, I needed 70 to 100 pounds of honey to get a colony of bees through a winter here in my yard. Today, I need about 45 pounds of honey to get that same size colony through winter. And so what's really changed is my management style. So I'll just cut right to the chase. We're going to talk about the most commonly used hive configuration, which is the Langstroth design, just for expediency, because I only have 2 hours and 15 minutes. I do understand that. Anyway, so the standard Langstroth hive allows us to infinitely expand and contract the hive. We just add boxes. Colony gets bigger, they make more honey, we stack on supers. The challenge comes in when we want to pull that honey off and we want to leave enough for our bees to get into and through winter. So sizing your colony and sizing the hive right for the colony that occupies it is critical. Through the years, I stopped top venting. So what's now being called the condensing hive really just emulates what bees have in a cavity that they naturally occupy. And so when we have a hive, I just have the standard single entrance at the bottom board. And that's that entrance has even been modified through the years here, because year after year, we look at all the hives, we make comparisons, and I don't do the same thing to all of my hives at the same time, because I want to understand incrementally what's working and what is not. I don't consider success through one winter to be the final word on what's working with my bees. So the standard is 3/4 inch thick sidewalls, pine boards mostly. We have some cedar, some hoop pine. And I also keep my entrance narrow, summer and winter. And it's 3/8 of an inch high, roughly 3 inches wide. That's the entrance reducer size. I arrived at that because it solves a lot of problems throughout the year. Right now, with the honeybee colonies building up, of course, they're responding to the nectar flow that's out in the environment. We also have wasps. I was out with my grandsons, the one that I refer to as the supervisor. We were hunting wasp nests and we found them. They're getting larger and their appetite is growing. Therefore, the challenge on your beehives is growing. They want to rob them, especially if it's going to be cold mornings. So your step in helping your bees get through winter would be reducing their exposure to robbing from wasps and other bees. Because what's going to happen after this big nectar flow, which is goldenrod, asters, we have Maximilian sunflowers and all these things going on. When that wanes, we have a high population of foragers that are now going to be looking at other colonies to rob, because the forage will dwindle. So keeping that entrance small, and I don't change it summer or winter, and there's no top entrance, no top vent. So when we think about getting into the fall, and this is just my practice, by the way, I'm not telling you that that's what you need to do where you are, but another challenge comes when we have full boxes of bees and we have to pack them down for winter time. So sizing them down, this is my standard configuration: one single deep 10 frame Langstroth box with a medium super wall-to-wall honey. If that medium super is partially full of brood, then I might go 2 medium supers for the bees to get through winter. In the past, I thought, wow, I'll just keep double deeps and put a couple of supers on top of that and have all this honey above the bees. The perfect position for my bees to be in when winter hits is down low near the entrance. That's another reason why I stick with a single entrance and no venting, they keep their brood near the vent naturally. You can also keep them down, of course, with a queen excluder, but by establishing a honey bridge above that brood box, we can pretty much expect nothing but honey up in your upper supers. Now we have to get them out of the supers to pack down for winter. Getting them out of your supers, I use escape boards. So the best escape board that I've found anywhere is by Ciracell, actually. The bees go right out through those, and we can pull the honey supers off, and then you just put your insulated inner cover on top of what is going to be your wintering configuration. And when does that happen? So for me here, that's going to happen second or third week of September. And that's when we don't pull any more honey, because there's still enough forage available for them here where I am that they can replenish what we take off, and we can make sure they're heavy enough to get through winter. Now, the insulated inner cover has been a big bonus for me. A lot of different companies make them. The Be Smart Designs insulated inner cover is one that I've been using a lot. I also put feeders on now. I'm going to show you one. There was no real great hive top insulated inner cover that I could find until this one came out from Be Smart. It is a plastic contained polystyrene. The polystyrene has challenges, by the way. If you leave this on the porch, your chickens will eat it. But you can put a medium super around it. I also have feeder shims that are just medium supers with, instead of this, it would just have a inner cover that's glued to the bottom of it, and that becomes the bottom, but now you have to insulate yourself. And if you make your own, I insulate with this Reflectex or double bubble. That stuff works really well. But this allows us to put feed on or just plug the hole. This has a little black cover that I lose all the time, so I make my own wooden plugs for these. But now, for example, let's say that we needed to have an emergency food resource on your hive above the insulation in a secondary insulated space, so that when your bees work up through the honey stores, if that happens, you have an emergency resource on your hive. And that's where now it's a fondant pack. In the past, I used to put rapid round feeders up here, and I filled them with dry sugar. And then the sugar would take on moisture through the winter, through the center, and then it would turn into a sugar brick. So I did some evaluations on sugar bricks, because part of what I do is come up with backyard experiments that will definitely give us information about how the bees use resources that we put in for them. So however you arrive at your insulated inner cover, if you can put a feed and have an enclosure up there that's also insulated, so your bees can access that resource. The solid feeding, so the dry sugar I've stopped using, because the fondant came out. The fondant, and I don't know how to make fondant, so thank goodness HiveAlive came out with it. They came out with a 2-pound pack. Then a year later, they had a 5-pound pack. So I put that inverted over that hole, and spring would arrive, and then we'd have to go to syrup or something like that. So then I needed a different style feeder that would allow me to put fondant or solid fuel and a liquid when the temperatures worked out. So this is just another example of that. This would go in a 10-frame box. In the center part, I put, and right now I have a hive out that we just did a video about, where we have a double queen 2 colony system, and then a central riser with a central feeder. And we even have the HiveAlive pollen patties on there right now, because we did something called a super split. But the reason I'm mentioning this particular feeder style is we can provide liquid to either side. At the same time, we provide a solid. And liquid is not what we feed in the middle of winter, but when we get those warm spring days and we're trying to kick off a colony that may be without enough resources to really get going, you have the option to do both. So you can also make configurations like this, but this just shows what kind of features I like to see on some kind of feeder shim setup. The ability to give liquid and solids at the same time. So with the cluster at the bottom, moving up through your honey, as I mentioned, about 40 pounds of honey, 45 pounds of honey, which is a medium super full of honey. As they start to migrate up through that, we keep an eye on them in winter. And a lot of my viewers jump on the HiveAlive fondant packs and they want to throw them on right away. Please don't. Here's why. Because what happened, particularly last year, we were paying attention to with thermal shots. So we scan the hives and we see where the cluster is, loose, tight, whether the heat signature is really focused. Going into winter, we want that underneath all of your honey. Here's what happened and what I want you to know. If you put that fondant pack up there or your sugar resource, whatever it is you put up on top, if you put it up too soon, I found that your bees migrate up too soon and ignore the honey that's stored in those outer frames. So that central column goes right up there and they end up underneath your inner cover at the beginning of winter. That's a huge problem. So what we want to do, they have their provisions. We don't even want to put on an emergency feed resource until the cluster is well established. They're nice and tight. We're getting those frozen nights. Then as an emergency resource, when I see the cluster about halfway up into the honey, that's when I put on a fondant pack. And that's, they'll stay with, they're anchored by their brood. And then the little, what we have water bees inside, but we also have kind of internal foragers that will break off of the mantle and go up, get that resource and bring it back down. But the cluster will stay under the honey and not move up too soon. So preps for winter are making sure that our bees are healthy before we get to winter. So for those of you who are treating for Varroa destructor mites, this is the time. Because we're trying to create healthy stock and we're trying to reduce or get the numbers of Varroa destructor mites down as much as we possibly can, because the bees that are being produced now will ultimately be the bees, the nurse bees that nourish and produce our fat-bodied winter bees that are going to carry our bees through winter. And a lot of people wonder about feeding proteins and stuff in the fall. And what we've learned about the fat-bodied winter bees, these nurse bees that never fly, never forage, they're in the hive, they live for months, they store pollen proteins in their bodies. So they're not just storing resources, they can produce the nourishment for brood in the middle of winter without having to access pollen or having pollen coming in through the entrance of your hive. So there's a lot of questions about whether fall feeding, as far as proteins go, are beneficial to the bees and make a significant difference. So those winter bees are, again, what we want to get maximum nourishment as they're being produced, and we want to make sure that they have the pollen resources, which they do, hopefully from the environment, before they get into winter. If they don't, that's when we have to assess brood scale and look at the nourishment in your brood area. And how we do that is by looking at freshly hatched eggs, and we look at the larvae and we see if they're in a nice, rich, full pool of resources. And if they're not, if they look kind of dried out, then they're suffering from malnutrition. You have to do something about that as a beekeeper. So that's when it would be time to start boosting resources. Now, I haven't tried it because it hasn't happened here for me in the fall, but if I were facing that, I would strongly consider those pollen patties now that have come out. They're doing really well because I'm using them in some other hives as an experiment, and the bees are consuming those even while pollen is being brought in from outside. So there's some benefit to the bees, and I can't measure that as a backyard beekeeper, whether or not this is a significant boost, but the brood consistency and volume is really good and spot on for this time of year. So there again, at the end of November, beginning of December is when we kind of used to plan our Varroa destructor mite control, and we use oxalic acid vaporization for that, organic treatment. A blizzard hit. We couldn't do it. So I went through last winter without that last knockout treatment for my Varroa mites. So part of your management is, if you're going to control Varroa mites chemically, this is something you want to be doing right now. So I don't know if that's my 15 minutes. So that's my winter management.
Great. We have a few questions here. I might just show them up while it's fresh in your head. So John asked, what's the brand name of the feeder shim that you showed?
Yeah, so that's John Menacall. Hi, John. That is the Apame 10-frame feeder, and they sell those for wooden hives as well. You don't have to buy the Apame plastic insulated hives. You can just get those. So it's the Apame 10-frame feeder shim.
And Hail Hives are wondering, are you using the Apame inner covers on all your hives?
Okay, so the Apame inner covers are they're transitioning. So right now, about 30% of my hives have them. All of my nucleus hives have them, and I'm equally split between those and the Cirrocell, the ones that have the double blue reservoirs, because I can have liquid in that and a solid in the other. But I am transitioning into just having those because they're performing so well.
Great. Okay, there are some more questions for you there, Fred. So we're going to maybe go through, have a better look and go through all of them at the end, because I want to do those easy ones while it was still fresh in your head. So I'm going to add in Brad back in here. And so we'll just, thanks very much for that, Fred. That was really great. So I'm going to let Brad go back to it.
Yeah, thanks, Fred, for covering that. That's some great points, especially, whether you're East Coast or West Coast, kind of prepping for winter. We're going to kind of flip over to nutrition. Dara's going to talk about that and how we can start this, getting the proper nutrition into bees now in preps for fall and winter. So I'm going to introduce Dara and let him kind of take it over.
Hi, hello everybody. Thanks a million for that, Fred. There's a lot of things I parallel on that with, and maybe at the end of the talk we might talk about that as well. And I do have a question for you at the end as well that I was curious about one of the things you said. But I can't talk off like the way Fred can, just straight off the bat like that. I don't know how he can do that. I just can't do that. So I have notes, so I won't be as attractive a speaker as Fred, but I will do my very best to make this as entertaining and as interesting as possible. So first off, when we talk about winter preparation, most people are thinking about, and there's going to be overlap here with what Fred was saying as well, but I'll skip through the stuff as quickly as we can. Most people are thinking about what for overwinter is like cold weather, like wrapping hives. But like Fred was saying, the winter preparation begins now in August, September, before it gets really cold. It's really the time when the bees are making their special bees, their winter bees, which is, as Fred said, the generation of longer-lived bees. Longer-lived bees that need to be, and these bees need to be healthy and strong to make it through the winter months into the spring. And if they're not, you're looking for trouble. So the key point is that the health and quality of the healthier bees and the quality of nutrition they get during this time has a direct impact on their winter survival and performance in the new spring season. And if they aren't well fed and healthy now, they simply won't be strong enough later on. So to break down why health and nutrition is so important, first of all, your bees need to build up fat reserves. This is what helps them survive for the months with no brood rearing and foraging in the colony. And good nutrition also boosts their immune system, help them fight off pathogens like Nosema, which can flare up. And by nutrition, we don't just mean calories. This is the moment to combine good feeding with targeted health support, and like HiveAlive concentrate, where it's added to the syrup or the patties. And HiveAlive has been scientifically proven to promote gut health, strengthen immunity, and lower pathogen levels, giving bees a much better chance of surviving winter. And of course, well-fed colonies are less likely to dwindle or starve during periods of cold and poor weather when they can't fly. And really that adds up to one thing, is that colonies receiving strong nutrition and proven health support before winter will be stronger, more productive, and faster build up come spring. So, as we said, in the late summer and the fall, your bees are focused on preparing for winter, and it's when they're raising their winter bees. These are physiologically different from summer bees. These bees have to live 4 to 6 months, not the 4 to 6 weeks that summer bees live. And to do that, they need to build up the fat reserves, which is critical for energy storage, immune function, overall resilience. But the problem is many colonies are under stress from drought, poor forage, mite pressure, and diseases. And without the right nutrition at this stage, they can't build those reserves effectively. And that's why feeding smart is essential. And the way to do that is using HiveAlive in your syrup and your patties to ensure winter bees are strong as possible. And actually, just to add on what Fred was saying, they've done research on commercial hives, and feeding them protein going into winter is, as long as of the syrup and stuff like that as well, feeding them protein going into the winter time definitely makes a difference to their strength coming out in the springtime. Now, if there's a huge amount of forage around when you're doing it, maybe protein doesn't have a huge effect, but in most cases there isn't a huge amount of forage around. So feeding protein does make a difference to the health of the bees. So the goal is clear: feed enough, feed smart, so your colony overwinters strong, healthy, and fully prepared. And once winter sets in, and in colder areas, the hive shifts into survival mode. Bees form a tight cluster to keep warm, and they rely entirely on what they've stored in the comb and their body fat reserves. They can't forage, so there's no way to replenish what's being lost. And as the winter wears on, especially when brood rearing starts again in late winter, their energy needs go up again, and just as their reserves are getting low. And this is the dangerous period when colonies can quietly starve. They can be just inches away from food or struggle with nutrient deficiencies that weaken them long before spring. And that's why many beekeepers now feed our fondant as part of their winter survival strategy. It's not just a backup plan, it's an insurance plan. It's a way to safeguard the survival through late winter and on into early spring. Our HiveAlive fondant is unique in that it delivers high energy feed with added vitamins and amino acids for additional nutrition and the precise health supporting dose of HiveAlive. This combination helps the bees maintain resilience and gut health during the most vulnerable months. In addition, of course, our packaging, the unique packaging, the way it's wrapped in the plastic, ensures the fondant doesn't dry out, so it's ready for when your bees do need it. It's not going to be hard and not able for the bees to digest. It's just there for when the bees need it. That's it. Quick summary there. I'll be talking about the winter survey results that we did on HiveAlive, which is really interesting, and basically how well HiveAlive did over winter last year. But in the meantime, Linda's going to talk to you about the specific HiveAlive tools you can use to support your bees and give them the best chance of thriving all the way into next spring. Linda.
Thank you, Dara. So we all know that nutrition is very important for our bees when we're preparing for winter, whether you're using HiveAlive or not. But if you're here today, I'm guessing you want to support colony health even more than just standard supplementation with sugar, and ensure that you're preparing your colonies as best you can for the winter ahead and for a productive year next year. So HiveAlive is that next step. So we're going to take a look at what it is and how it can support colony health going into winter and beyond. So first up, let's take a look at what's inside our bottle. So the concentrate is based on a blend of natural ingredients, and each one has been selected to support colony health. As Brad mentioned, Dara did a lot of work with seaweed experts when he was developing the HiveAlive blend. And so the biggest chunk of HiveAlive is Osha Shield, which is our unique blend of seaweed extracts. And while seaweed might sound unusual for bees, it actually has quite a long history of use in animal feed to support health, gut function, and immune response. We were the pioneers in providing seaweed nutrients to bees over 15 years ago, and our extracts are actually produced using a patented cold process to preserve the bioactivity, and they're packed with natural antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal, and prebiotic properties, as well as, of course, vitamins and minerals. The next chunk of HiveAlive is thymol. It's been used for years to help with nosema control, but it doesn't always mix well with syrup. So we use a unique emulsification process, so it stays blended and doesn't cause crystallization or separation. And then finally, we have lemongrass in there, also commonly used in beekeeping. It calms the bees and makes the syrup more attractive. It also adds antimicrobial support. And when we were developing it, we carefully balanced the amount of lemongrass in HiveAlive to get the benefits without triggering robbing. And we know that some other supplements do have lemongrass in them, which can lead to robbing, and sometimes we get associated with these products, but it's important to stress that unlike these other products, HiveAlive does not cause robbing, and together the ingredients in HiveAlive make it a powerful tool to support your colonies year-round, and especially now as you prepare for the challenges of winter. So why do beekeepers use HiveAlive products? These are the 4 biggest reasons we hear again and again from beekeepers. One is to help reduce pathogens like nosema, the chalk brood, and foul broods. Secondly, would be to support stronger colony populations, also to boost honey production, and what tonight is all about, to improve overwinter survival. So HiveAlive is manufactured to very high quality standards. We're FDA compliant, we conform to EU regulations, we have HACCP and GMP procedures in place, and it's been sold in over 40 countries for the last 15 years. But our evidence isn't just based on anecdotal feedback. We're very proud to say that we're one of the only bee feed supplements with data published in peer-reviewed scientific journals that show real long-term benefits of using HiveAlive. So I'm not going to dive into that tonight, but if you do want to go deeper into the scientific results, we have put together a more detailed video that walks through each component and the research behind it. So I would encourage you to check out that webinar. We're going to put the link in the chat and in the description here. But briefly, the trials were carried out to assess the effects of HiveAlive on colony population, honey production, survival, and Nosema spore counts. And in the trials, the hives that were fed HiveAlive once in the fall and once again in the spring. And you only need 2 teaspoons per gallon of syrup of HiveAlive. But with that feeding regime, we found that the results gave an 89% increase in colony population. That's almost double the population. We had a 45% increase in honey production. We had 100% survival in the HiveAlive fed groups versus the 15% losses in control group. And then there was also a 57% reduction in Nosema spore counts when HiveAlive was fed versus control. So if you're interested in that, please do check out those results in more detail. And if you have any questions, just give us shoot us a message and we'll be happy to assist. But I'm going to move on to just talking a bit more about the range of products that are available to support colonies in preparation for winter. So I know from the comments, some of you are users of HiveAlive, so let us know what products you have been using. And I'm going to run through each of them now. So first up is our flagship product. It's our HiveAlive concentrate. And why would you use it in fall? Well, fall is when the bees need extra nutrition to rear strong, healthy winter bees that have the best chance of surviving the winter. We also want to get our colony disease levels as low as possible going into the winter to make sure pathogen levels aren't increasing during that time. For example, during the winter, the bees can't get out for cleansing flights, so this can be a time when Nosema spore counts increase. So we do recommend that you try to get your pathogen levels lower before we face into the winter to have the best chance of survival. For best results, add the concentrate into sugar syrup. And the bottle, as I mentioned, does go a long way, so we just need 2 teaspoons per gallon of syrup. And the other great thing about feeding in fall is that the bees are storing the syrup with HiveAlive added, which means the antimicrobial activity of HiveAlive can get to work on the comb and the hive, not just the bees themselves. Then if you're in a rush and you want the easiest way to feed your bees, then this is it. So it's our HiveAlive Easy Feed Super Syrup. It's ready-to-use syrup that already includes the full dose of HiveAlive, so no mixing, no measuring required. Some of you might have already tried out the pouches. You don't even need a feeder for those, but we have some new sizes coming soon. So we'll have a 2.5 gallon and a 1 gallon jug available. So they're really handy products to have in your truck in case you're caught out during an inspection and realize you need to feed a few colonies and don't want to head home and start mixing up syrup. It's ready to feed straight away. So a really handy product. And because HiveAlive is already blended in there, every feed delivers not just the calories from the sugar, but also the immune and gut support that you need for your bees. Then, as Fred mentioned, depending on what's in your area, and Dara mentioned as well, you may or may not need supplemental protein feeding, but we do like to supplement with our pollen patties around now to make sure that the colony has all the protein it needs to raise those strong winter bees, as a lack of protein will really affect how strong your winter bees are going to be. So unlike standard pollen substitutes, our patties contain real USA pollen, giving your bees the amino acids they need for strong development. They're also packed with a full dose of the HiveAlive as well, and we have added amino-rich seaweed extracts in there too to boost colony population and resilience. Seaweed extracts also provide prebiotics, enzymes, phenolic compounds, and that would also further support bee health. And then what most of you probably associate with winter feeding is our fondant. So winter being the toughest time for your bees, and this is the feed that's going to get them through that. The fondant is a high energy, it's a ready to use feed. It has the correct amount of HiveAlive as well. It's designed for cold weather feeding, so when it's too cold to feed syrup. It's clean, it's safe, And it's so easy to place right above the cluster. So it's giving your bees exactly what they need and when they need it. It's perfect as an emergency backup or as a primary winter feed to prevent starvation and keep the colonies going until the springtime. And we like to think of it as an insurance policy. So you can pop it on your hives, and if they need it, it's there. And if they don't, you can always take it off in the spring and either wrap it up and use it another time, or you can add water to it and melt it down into a syrup. But if your colonies do need it, you sure are going to be happy that you had food ready for them instead of opening up a starved, dead colony. And again, yeah, HiveAlive is in there, so it provides all the health benefits of HiveAlive too, as well as the boost of energy from the sugar. So yeah, that's actually all from me. That flew. So I'll pass you back to Dara to talk about the exciting results from the effectiveness of HiveAlive during last winter's season. So I'm excited to hear more about that.
Cool. As most beekeepers know, last winter was not a great year for beekeepers. There were huge losses, unprecedented colony losses. But we noticed we weren't hearing of these losses with our HiveAlive customers. So we wanted to see, was this like purely anecdotal, or was there some real data behind this? So in April this year, we asked beekeepers who used HiveAlive last fall and winter to share their colony survival numbers. And we got a decent amount of response. We got 304 responses, which is about half the responses that the main survey, the Project APIS M survey, they had about 800 survey responses from beekeepers. So we got a fairly significant number of responses back. And they were from all over, as you can see from the map there. They're from all over the US. And the mission or the question was simple: did HiveAlive feeding actually translate into better overwinter survival? And spoiler alert, yes, the answer is a very definite yes. So to be fair, the results actually blew us away. Like we saw that, people were telling us they weren't seeing the loss, we didn't actually know until we did the survey. And as you can see there, that there's a big difference. According to Project APIS M, the average winter losses was about 56%, but among beekeepers using HiveAlive, the losses hovered around the low 20s. So that's a 77% survival rate. And to put that in context, if you went into winter with 100 colonies and you didn't feed HiveAlive, about 45 of them would have survived. But if you did feed HiveAlive, about 77 of them would have survived. It's nearly twice as many. That's not good. That's game changing. And this was consistent across the state lines. But not only was it consistent across straight lines, it also was consistent across the different types of beekeepers. So whether it was a hobbyist, a sideliner, or large scale operations, everyone appeared to be seeing significantly better survival than the non-HiveAlive users. So we were really impressed with that. That was the main bulk of the survey results. But we also, when we're doing it, we asked people about what they believe caused their losses. And the top culprits were like weak colonies, starvation, mites, and novice area, further underscoring the importance of colony health and nutrition. But what we thought was really interesting was for the beekeepers had the lowest amount of colony losses. Their main reason for loss is queen failure. So it sounds like they got everything else right, but queen failure seems to be an issue that's not easy to solve and difficult for them to overcome. So we thought that was interesting. So just to wrap up, just a few key points. So colony health and nutrition just isn't optional, it's essential. The strength of HiveAlive isn't anecdotal, whether it's from our peer-reviewed published papers or the surveys. HiveAlive consistently shows us data-validated colony strength, helping the bees resist threats to colony health. And by preventing losses, it means you're saving literally hundreds of dollars instead of spending them on replacing colonies. And we all know that even if you do replace a package, it's never going to be as productive as an overwintered colony. So these findings, we believe, come at a critical moment. The new research from USDA shows that viruses linked to Varroa mites are becoming more widespread. The mites are becoming more resistant to treatments. Losses across commercial operations exceeded 60% this last season, which is about $600 million in costs to the industry, which is very significant. These numbers from HiveAlive users show that the health and nutrition are a frontline tool in supporting colony resilience and not a secondary option. If strong bees mean stronger honey yields, fewer colony rebuilds, and less heartbreak. The survey proved that HiveAlive delivers real value. So we're truly thrilled and proud to be able to share these results tonight, because they highlight the beekeepers using science-backed nutrition are coming through the winter in far better shape than the national average. And that's it. What are we doing next, Linda? What's the plan next?
So if anyone has, we have a lot of questions already in, but if anyone has any more questions that they want to ask, please get them in now. I'm just going to remove this from here so we can see everyone. I know Fred has a few more questions that came in here, but I'll find them now in a minute. But Carmen asked, is it true that the Asian hornet was observed in Ireland? Yes, that is true. I'm not sure if they found a nest, or do you know, Dara? I think it was
just one individual. That it was seen. There was a photograph headed into the department or whatever. So they went down there and they caught one, and they looked for more. They haven't found more. So hopefully it's just a one-off. But I would think it's just a matter of time before they get in. But I would like to think that the weather in Ireland is so wet and cold and miserable all the time that the Asian hornet will not survive very well and become the problem that it is in so many other places. The stories from France are just nuts. Like, it's just a nightmare. Just a couple of things actually before we get into questions on Fred's talk. I thought the things that I would parallel with would be small entrances. I have fixed entrances. They're about that wide, and all my colonies, no matter how strong the colonies are, it's never been an issue. Only time it's ever an issue is the entrances are too big, and that's when they get robbed and destroyed. If you think about colonies in roofs and stuff like that, like, you can have huge colonies cover the whole roof, and the entrance might be an inch across, and they do just fine. Bigger entrances are definitely a bigger problem. Insulation of hives, I use poly hives, and I actually have it's actually from the roof of our house. It's insulated wood that doesn't absorb water, but it kind of breathes at the same time. It's awesome. But they're fully insulated top and bottom. I don't get the whole letting them breathe at the top, because they're managed. That's how they wouldn't survive. Wouldn't in the real world. They would never go into a space that had big entrance at the top of it. So that's never been my thing. And one other point that Fred touched on that I think is really important is the Varroa management. The earlier you can treat your bees for Varroa after you take off your honey, it means that the bees that they're making for the winter are so if you manage the Varroa management straight after you take off the honey, say now, you're knocking off the Varroa level. So when they're making their bees for the winter, they're going to be bees that haven't been affected by the mites, or more importantly, the viruses that the mites are transferring. So they're way more greater chance of surviving the winter time. If you leave it to later on, when they're making these winter bees, when the Varroa levels are high, those bees are compromised, and the chances of them making it to the winter are far less. And I have one question for you, Fred. Is you said something about the cold mornings and wasps. I hadn't heard that before. Is that the bees stay in the hive and the wasps get in, or something? Is it?
Yeah, because the bees don't get out and forage. They don't even break cluster until the warmth really shows up for the morning. And the hives are visited by Vespidae early on because they fly cold. And so you'll see them on the landing boards. I recommend everyone get out there at sunrise, and you'll see them scooting right into the hive unchallenged. And so this is another reason why we want that reduced entrance. And someone I noticed here also mentioned a hive gate. The hive gate causes that wasp to go all the way in and emerge directly under the cluster. So until the bees break their cluster, the guards aren't even out on the landing board to challenge them. So they scoot right in the entrance, go straight up the interior surface. They don't even interact with the bees at all. They're headed for the top, and they're going after their honey. Cool. So because at the end of the year, the wasps are making their queens, so they're less after protein and they're more after the honey stores. But then once they start to engage the bees, the big battle royal starts, and the wasps are better equipped for that kind of fighting. Once they get to the honey, that's the risk, because then they scoot back and they bring other wasps with them, and their colonies, of course, are peaking at the end of the year.
Yeah. Cool. That's what I was thinking. Okay, cool. Interesting. Yeah.
So just to follow up on, or maybe that's answered then, James was looking for you to recap on how you reduce the entrance size. I think you had a...
The entrance size reduction, and the reason I arrived at the 3/8 of an inch also centers around rodents that like to move into hives during the wintertime. Same reasons. We have deer mice and we have house mice out here, and we have shrews also, which I actually like the shrews. They cannot get through a 3/8 inch opening. So that's also bee space. It's easy to remember. Large bumblebees also can't get in there. We've seen bumblebees zip right in and raid a hive. So that's a great entrance size for preventing even some people mentioned Mandarinia, the Asian giant hornet can't get through that. Even the European hornet cannot get through the 3/8 inch entrance reduction. So it has a multitude of uses. And as Dara said, I take my cues from those who are doing rip outs and cutouts and interacting with feral colonies in the southern part of the United States, where the humidity is higher, the temperatures are higher. They've done collectively over 1,000 cutouts, and I'm only interested in where was the entrance, how big was the entrance, how large was the interior colony and the honey stores and everything else. And often it's a tiny gap between clapboards. They're the smallest entrances. It's almost always a single entrance. And even down in those conditions, they're drying out their honey, because that's one of the arguments we get a lot. They're drying out their honey, and they have huge honey stores, 4-foot long combs in some cases. So it proves out that a tiny entrance does not impede your bees' ability to ventilate, dehydrate, and of course, defend their hive.
Yeah, I should also actually add, I do have a mesh floors, because the poly hives, the condensation will build up on the mesh if it's all sealed up completely. But certainly the roof is always insulated.
Mm-hmm.
Question there from Stuart. Any advice to combat small hive beetle when adding pollen patties? So we're selling the Bee Smart pollen patty trivets. So they raise up the pollen patty above the frame so that the bees can defend against from the beetles laying eggs in the bottom of it.
And they only fit half a patty at a time, so that's the other key part is put small amounts in so they eat it quickly. Oh, look, Fred's all over it. Look at that.
No.
That's the trivet we're talking about. So it allows the bees access to the entire pollen patty, so there's no place for the small hive beetles to hide. Yep.
And another question then, same ingredients in the liquid than in the patties. So yeah, the fondant patties and the pollen patties both have the correct dose of HiveAlive in them already added into them, so that there is actual HiveAlive gone into both of those products, and same with the syrup as well. But in the case of the pollen patty, we do have additional seaweed extracts, that a separate dried extract that we also add in there to help improve the protein content and amino acid profile of the pollen patties. We have a question there from Mark. I'll pass this over to you, Dara, to answer. I have 2 cases of HiveAlive fondant and 40 pounds of patties on hand. What's my best strategy for using these going into or through the winter?
It just depends on how many colonies you have, I suppose, first. But well, certainly, I mean, if you're feeding, depending what's out there right now, if there isn't much forage out there, I'd be certainly use the protein now anyway. You can feed the fondant. We were talking there about feeding the fondant. I mean, we never designed the fondant to be fed as a fall feeding tool. It's always been designed for the wintertime. I know a lot of people do use it in the fall. We would recommend syrup with HiveAlive in it before the fondant to feed for feeding in the fall. And one, besides the fact that that's what you should be feeding anyway, but also because HiveAlive is in it when you're feeding it and you're putting it in, it's being stored in the comb. We know breaks down the spore walls of nosema, foul brood, chalk broods. So essentially, you're cleaning out your hive and the bees' guts if they're eating for a longer period of time as well. So that's good too. But as to feed the fondant, I mean, put the fondant on once it's too cold to feed syrup. That's probably the best answer I can give. If you need anything more specific, just email us with more details, and we'll be happy to get back to you.
For a horizontal hive, would you put the sugar brick in a frame feeder on the end or on top of the frames under the double bubble? That's from Whitney.
We've told, I think if they're referring to the horizontal ones where the frames are all up against each other, we've in the past told people to drill a hole between the gap where the 2 frames are to allow the bees to come up through that and put like the fondant on top. That's worked well for people who need to do that. If that answers the question, Fred, you might have thoughts.
Yeah, I have a thought on that. With it depends on which horizontal hive we're talking about, but if it's the long Langstroth hive, you already have cover boards. So there's the frames themselves, there's a space, bee space, and then the cover boards. We always take several of the cover boards and make sure they have a feeder hole already on them. And that way you can place those anywhere along the top where your brood is. And then, yes, we put the fondant pack on there. I've gotten away from sugar breaks just because I did observations of my bees using fondant compared to the sugar bricks, and it was 10 to 1. In other words, it took 10 times the amount of time and effort to get the resource that an individual bee needed from the dry sugar brick as compared to the fondant pack. They were spending 1/10 of the time gleaning the resource from the fondant and then moving on. So if you could substitute the fondant for the sugar brick, you'll see a much better resource accessibility to your bees. But you can put it right on top of your cover board. Make sure a few of those just have holes in them. And then as described, someone said double bubble over the top of that for insulation. We've had really good luck with that.
Perfect. Another question in there from Sergio. How do you feel about honeybee healthy?
I'm not going to comment on honeybee healthy other than I wouldn't mix it with HiveAlive. People have asked that before. There is a lot of lemongrass in honeybee healthy, far more than there is in HiveAlive. So you're definitely looking for robbing trouble if you mix the two of them together. That we, like Linda said earlier, we don't have a robbing issue with our product. We have the right amount of lemongrass in there that doesn't lead to robbing. I don't know, Fred. I don't know if you have thoughts or what. Or maybe we should. Maybe we're getting a product specific. I don't know. We shouldn't be saying.
Well, we're talking about different things. Honeybee healthy, I do use it, but for different reasons. So I don't use it as a nutritional supplement. I use it to extend sugar syrup, for example, if I'm storing and using that to feed. It does extend the life of your sugar syrup. So definitely don't mix it together. I get that question a lot. Also, can we mix it with, make a cocktail of everything, HiveAlive, and all these essential oils. Essential oils at higher levels are toxic to your bees. So don't do it. HiveAlive, Honeybee Healthy and HiveAlive are very separate as far as their use goes. But I also understand HiveAlive liquid can also be used to extend sugar syrup in spray bottles and things like that too. So if you're going to buy just one, I would personally pick, because I'm not part of the team here, I would pick the HiveAlive liquid over the Honeybee Healthy. Just because it does the things that Honeybee Healthy does as well. And as Dara said, reduces that scent in the air that draws robbers in, particularly at the end of the year when you're using it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe you might know this, Fred, but like I know that if we use HiveAlive in the syrup, it's pretty much indefinitely good. It's not going to go bad. Is that the same with Honeybee Healthy as well?
I get about 6 months out of Honeybee Healthy before we start to see black mold.
Okay, you'll get a lot longer with HiveAlive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question from Carmine: Has HiveAlive been tested on the queen to pass down the benefits of gut health to her brood? Would each brood cycle need to be treated with HiveAlive?
Yeah, the queen isn't going to pass it down. It's not like it's an antiviral thing, so it's not like they have the RNA stuff where they impregnating the queens and where it passes down the brood. It's not going to work like that. No.
But we do, just to mention on the brood cycle there, we do recommend, like HiveAlive isn't a Varroa product, but it can help with the Varroa drops. So we do recommend, if you want to use it that way, you can spray or drench the colonies with a light sugar syrup that has HiveAlive added at the correct concentration, and do it once a week for 3 weeks to cover the brood cycle. Sorry.
I do have a question, because each of these things independently has a dose for a hive. So, for example, you said that the patties would have a full dose of HiveAlive in them for that colony. Also, if we use sugar syrup, we've got a full dose for the colony. How many doses can a colony take?
So
indefinitely, as long as the concentration isn't exceeded. So you can feed it HiveAlive and it doesn't make a difference as long as you don't get high. And generally what happens if you mix the wrong, put too high a concentration, they just don't eat it.
Okay. So long as they're in succession, we're all right. It's not like a one and done. We gave that one a gallon. They're done. We can't give them another gallon with HiveAlive because they already got a gallon.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just the concentration. It's like
Okay.
anything else. I'm trying to think of an example. It's like salt. You can add a small amount of salt to all your food, but if you had way too much of it, it's not going to be good for you. Or even water, you know, if the concentration is too high. So it's just about keeping the concentration consistent.
Okay.
So yeah, to kind of, I think that kind of answers your question, Rachel. She was wondering, can you overdose? Yes. So ideally you would measure it out and not just slap it in, because
because also too little, then the concentration isn't strong enough to have an effect on the SEMA. So you do want to have the concentration right.
Yeah.
There was another question here for Fred. I think it was about are the APMA items available on A-frames? Where is it now?
Those are 10 frame feeders. The Be Smart insulated inner cover that I use for a feeder will sit on an 8 or a 10 frame. But as far as the APMA, they are exclusively 10 frame. They have a 6 or 7 frame, and then they also have a nucleus size, but they don't have an 8 frame.
Then Stu's Pure Virginia Honey has asked, have we altered the formula over the years for HiveAlive? No, is the answer.
No, nor the price, actually. The price has pretty much been the same as it was since we launched in the US, 7 or 8 years ago.
How about using, I think it means Apis biologic powders in the HiveAlive syrup? Yeah, there's, unlike the likes of Honeybee Healthy, there's no problems with interactions there. So we haven't tested it ourselves, but there shouldn't be any issues with doing that.
Yeah, and to maybe it's a bit arrogant to say, but we have strong scientific data to show that our product makes a difference. I'll leave it at that. Maybe next question.
I think, is there any more questions that people want to ask? Well, I think we've gotten through all of them, and it's bang on the hour. It's like that worked out well.
Any last minute questions, folks?
Oh yeah, well, I think that was actually answered. That's why I didn't answer that. Sorry. Vlad had asked, how can you tell the size of the cluster when it's freezing outside? Because I think you'd mentioned that, Brad, but someone else had answered that in the comments. But maybe if you just want to add to that again. Sorry, maybe just show up the question there again.
Was it for me, or is this question? Oh, it's for me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This only works in the uninsulated sidewalls. So if you've got a licensed hive or something like that, you won't know. With the wooden sidewalls, I use FLIR cameras. They go right on your smartphone. And those are the best ones right now. And they show the signatures. So what you want to do is go out at night so you don't have any conflict with sunlight heating up surfaces. And it tells you two things for sure. One, you have a colony that's alive. So if their temperature is anything above the background temperature, it's a living colony. The next one is the heat signature shows a tight hot spot. So you can see where the cluster is located and also the size of it. We also know when the cluster enlarges and it looks like there's two clusters, that's because part of them are up under the fondant and the rest of them are down below, anchored by brood. So you can even see that kind of detail with a FLIR system.
That's cool.
And question, we've actually got this question a few times this year. Can HiveAlive liquid be used in the water bowl for my bees to use? And I think, Brad, you can answer that because I think you've been doing it.
Yeah, I've been using it. I get that mold buildup. I know Fred's a big fan of glass. I've got plastic feeders. I've got stone planter trays out there with rocks in them. But anything you do tends to have mold in it. So I've been adding a little bit just to my water because they're using it to cool the hive down and bring water in. So I've been using that lately, and it seems to work out good. So you can use it.
Thank you. And then, can the liquid feeds discussed be added with the ultimate feeder? Yeah, they can, and that feeder is available on our website to buy as well, and you can buy from Be Smart too. And how many people do you employ? Jason wants to know. We have a team of 9 people working hard to bring the products that you love to you. So hopefully that answers your question. So I'm going to just thanks so much for everyone for entering into with all the comments. We've really enjoyed the questions. We've chosen some winners at random. So the winners are Jeffrey Finley, Rachel Stone, and Stuart Allison. So please do contact us. You can reach out to us on email. Our email is info@hivelivebees.com, or reach us on any of the socials. We just need your address to be able to dispatch your prize out to you. So that's Jeffrey Finley, Rachel Stone, and Stuart Allison. Give us a follow on social if you haven't already. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We regularly have giveaways, discounts, and competitions on our social media and on our email newsletter list. So if you want to sign up to our email newsletter list, just send us an email or head to the website to sign up there, usa.hivelivebees.com. And if you don't already, follow Fred. You can check out his website, fredsfinefowl.com, or follow his podcast, The Way to Be, and check out his YouTube channel as well. Oh yeah, sorry, I've announced the winners already. And yeah, just thanks so much for joining us. We've really enjoyed it. The last hour has just flown by. I can't believe it. I don't know if we mentioned it, but it's currently 2 a.m. at night here now in Ireland. But the time has just flown by. It's been great to get all your feedback about the product, that you're using the products, and great to get and be able to answer those questions. If you didn't get around to any of your questions or you thought of something afterwards, again, please do give us an email. So thanks so much for Fred for joining us. It's been really nice to hear from you as well. We've really enjoyed this evening.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, all, and see you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Bye.